Hey everyone, welcome to Lauren de Laguna. I am honored to be here with Jim Price, who is someone that I got the honor to meet at a CPAC event. He is a conservative commentator. He is a very interesting guy, marches to the beat of his own drum, has his own radio show, has his own talk show. And we are going to interview today and just learn all about you and learn about your life. So, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. It's been a full day. Started interviews sometime about 9 hours ago. Actually, I say interviews, but I do a midday show in New York. So yeah, 9 hours ago, I started doing interviews of my own show. So I'm on. This is number 6 for today. So yeah, it's been a
Oh, why
full
don't
day
you plug your
already.
stuff? Why don't you tell us where you can find your show?
The Jim Price Show. Basically, you put in at the Jim Price Show from TikTok to Facebook, Twitter. I'm on D Live, Twitch, Spotify, iTunes, Roku on the Patriot Podcast Network, as well as the Conservative Television of America. And let's see where else. Oh, I'm on Brighteon TV at 8:30 Eastern Time. I do like a midday on WYSL in upstate New York, and then I guessed, on different shows just like this one here. So, yeah, pretty much the Jim
Awesome.
Price Show. Anything you put in there, should be able to find it in most of your social media. I'm not on YouTube. There are a few that got kind of.
Really?
What's weird is they deleted my channel, but there's a few of my videos still out there from when I was doing the radio show. But yeah, they got me twice, and so I quit going back.
Oh, some people just keep making them and making them, but it's just
I
a
I
pain
don't
in
got that
the.
time. I don't got that time to be worried about all this. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So has YouTube been the oh, thank you so much. So has oh, I forgot to tell you, any super chat that is on screen, we have a policy. We read all of them out loud. Just saying hi. I'll be right back in a few. Thank you, the Clue Channel. Appreciate you.
Very
Um
good.
anyway, yeah, so what platform for you has been the most difficult? Is it been YouTube or like Twitter or and was there a time where it was difficult and now has it gotten easier?
No. I also Cloud Hub. Cloud Hub is the only uncensored platform out there. And if you guys are really looking for a place to land, if you just want to speak your mind, no matter what it is, in great community, clouthub.com. Anyway, no, for me, I started out. Sorry, I'll bring the microphone a little better here. I'm using the portable one because I'm actually at the house, so I'm not at the studio right now. Anyway,
Oh,
for me, it when I got started, the studio, the radio studio I was going to, they had Restream and OBS, and so like, oh well, we go out on Facebook and Twitter or Facebook or something like that live, and so we do the morning show from there. And I'm like, well, can I do my show from there? I just asked, I didn't know what it really meant, and they're like, well, yeah, you just got to set up your own Restream to send it out. And anyway, so I went to 10.2 million on Facebook, and then I got dinged for a Star Spangled Banner post that said that the prisoners were at bottom of the boat, and leadstories.com, an ex CNN editor, actually said that that was factually inaccurate because the prisoners were below deck. And so that was my first strike. And then basically right after that, my numbers plummeted from the millions to down to about 102,000 overnight. So basically, they just moved the decimal point over, and that was really, you could just see it. You see what they did, and then there was actually a
yeah, the
testimony in
shadow
the
banning.
house that they actually said that that's exactly how they did it. And they came out with that. It was like 3 years after I watched it happen to my account, and so I saw it firsthand. I was like, you know, and I couldn't figure it out. Nobody was talking to me about it, but I kind of predicted what it was, and then they finally came out and testified about it. Uh, so for me, the YouTube thing wasn't really bad. The only thing I had there was a lot of because of the radio station, we had rights to different songs. They were always hitting me with copyright stuff, and then eventually they just took the account because of community standards. But they never qualified which of the episodes were community standard violations, and they just took it right. So
I
that
do
created one
know
more.
that
But anyway, go ahead.
oh, I do
What's
know
that?
that if you get 3 copyright strikes, then that they can take away your channel if you get more than 3
Yeah.
copyright strikes.
Oh yeah,
So,
they were they
um,
were always trying to. Everything was copyright bangs, and I had copyright bangs on my intro outro, and it was all just public music. It wasn't anything that was special or anything like that, and they still banged me for copyright, and they said it was in like Honduras or something. It was still stupid, like I was violating Honduras's copyright to a
mm,
song. So anyway, but no, it's the sad part of it is that I know Twitter. I think I'm still classified as a bot. They've got me so shadow banned there. It's just unbelievable. But no, I just look at it as, Cloud Hub, I get 10, 12, 15,000 views on Cloud Hub on an episode. So I kind of know where I really at on a lot of things. Cloud Hub's not a really mainstream app, but it is an app for freedom. But yeah, Facebook will give me, I'll have 78 shares, but I'll get 12 likes. So you can do the
does
math on that.
Clout
That's
Hub?
something.
I've actually never even heard of Clout Hub. Clout or
Mhm.
Cloud?
Clout. Yeah, like you
Clout.
have clout into something. I have clout
Yeah.
in this room. Yeah.
So can you monetize on Clout Hub the same way you can
Not
on
yet. Not
YouTube?
yet. No,
Oh,
they're not quite there yet. So it's not really the big draw for
can
it.
you
But I
put
mean
your
now,
PayPal? Can you put your
mhm,
PayPal on screen? And so
yeah,
okay, so
yeah,
that's great then.
right,
All right.
yeah. And there's all the major hitters you could think of are over there. So it's not like it's just a few outliers that are on on that site. So people that you think of that are really deep into different types of the movement. You'll see X22 over there. You'll see Red Pills Project. You'll see Steve Bannon. There's a lot of the big names are over there publishing as well.
Well, I want to talk about, your movement through social media, but before we even get to social media, I want to talk about your radio career and everything before that. So, if
Yeah.
you best for me to start off with where are you from?
Actually, it was born in Phoenix, and then I lived between Phoenix and Wichita, Kansas, and then spent the last 20 years in Wichita, Kansas. That's where I started on the radio basically at the beginning, 2019, and then it just went from there. And just never been on the radio before, and thought I was just going to do a podcast. And a buddy of mine said, "Well, don't, if you want to do a podcast, we'll just do a radio show." And then the
Well, hold
rest is
on.
kind of
We
history.
we just went so fast. Like, so okay, so you grew up, do you have brothers, sisters? What's
No, no, just I'm an only child. I had guardian parents that took care of me when my mom wasn't around, and yeah, so it was kind of a yeah. The childhood is a really sordid story. It's not a very healthy story. Most people,
Oh, I'm
it's pretty
sorry. I didn't mean
damaging.
to.
So no, it doesn't. I mean,
Okay. Well, we don't have to
if I
do
wouldn't
that
be who I
then.
am if I hadn't gone through all the blood and the mud. You gotta understand that if you don't go through the fire, you can't come out the other side. And there's been a lot of things I've had that are challenges and things I've had to come through, and I appreciate all of them for what they were. And yeah, they made me tired and sometimes a little bitter and, a little bit, cried out over certain things. But they were, I grew from them, and I think I'm a better man now because of the things I went through as a child and as a man as I grew up. So, and I'm still in a constant form of change now. I'm trying to be better every day than I was the day before. But as a child, it was tough. All the worst things you could think of, you can say, check those boxes, and you can live through a
Yeah,
lot
I can
if you really
imagine.
have determination. So, and that's why
Well,
a
I'm
lot of this
really
is
sorry. I'm
personal.
really sorry to hear that.
Oh
Yeah.
no, it's all right.
But what
So,
was your first so when you first gained independence and you were living on your own, what was your first job?
at 15, I was on my own. Very first job was McDonald's at Harry and Hillside in Wichita, Kansas. The day I turned 16, I worked a full 8-hour shift, and that was back when McDonald's literally taught you how to mop a floor, how to fill a mop bucket, what cleaning products, how the mop bucket was cleaned, how it was stored, how it kept from mildew. You learned all that stuff. But that was my first job. The very first day I was 16. It was on my birthday. I worked a full day, and that's how I lived the rest of my high school. I did 3 sports a year, and then graduated and was I enlisted early at 17 to the Air Force, and right after graduation, went off to the Air Force, and then I got hurt, and they gave me an honorable discharge for my injuries, and then I started having kids. So I was always wanted to be a dad, and be a part of that.
Oh, that's great. So you left the Air Force, and then what did you do, like, immediately after leaving the Air Force? And thank you for your service, by the way.
No,
Thank you
no,
so
thank you.
much. Really appreciate that. Not enough people serve.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's yeah. So I went on to met my first wife, Lori, and we had 3 kids together. She had already had a daughter, and I adopted her, and so we had 4 kids. And they were good kids, and just didn't work out with me and mom, and so we split in 2000, end of 2001, 2002, early 2002. So yeah, it was over in 2001 that summer. But anyway, yeah, no, and that was the first marriage, and then I got married again, and she had a stepson, and so we were. I don't know. I don't know what that's too much information or if enough information, but
No,
yeah, 2
it's great.
marriages.
It sounds like you have a
So
really great big family and a lot of kids. And yeah, that's wonderful. You love being a dad.
mhm. Oh yeah.
Yeah. What then you started getting into radio. What prompted you to get into radio and how did that beginning look like?
Wh- Well, the radio really wasn't a desire. It was actually a necessity when I was a defense contractor for almost 18 years. So I did high security design for the Department of Defense. And as a Department of Defense contractor, I designed, built, and trained the military how to use the security systems. So everything from blast proofing, shelter in place, bulletproofing, ground penetrating radar, stuff like that. I would put in command centers, a lot like you see this TV array behind here that they have here in their home studio. Is that I designed those systems, and so I had to have a very clean, background, those kind of things, and ran for office, and then it just started tearing me apart from there. So when the establishment basically went in and started touching, my life and doing different things where I lost my security clearances and social groups and everything else. It was really kind of a downward effect, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And now you see it through the raids with Trump and Roger Stone and how they treated General Flynn. You can understand the establishment has a different version of justice and what they really think is okay to do to people. And we saw that with the Proud Boys case that just got published with the FBI racing and wanting to omit confident informants that were FBI agents and people that had infiltrated. Um, so when we see that right now, it's very evident. I mean, it's very like, wow, I can see exactly what they did and how they did it. But the sad part of it is that I was experiencing this back in 2016. And when I told people about these things that were going
Mm.
on, they told me I was crazy. There was like, well, nah, come on, Jim, that way, come on, you're not.
You mean
So
like
that was kind of
shadow
the,
banning, that sort of stuff?
well, no, it was actually them coming in and gaslighting, moving things in my house,
Wait,
doing,
who was?
we end up finding out that it was the Wichita Police Department that was actually going into my house and manipulating things in the home and did all kinds of stuff. The people, like the judge I was having coffee with for 3 years, he was the one who signed the no knock warrant on my house on my birthday, and so the guy that I had been having coffee with, that was my friend, signed the no knock warrant and told me happy birthday, and he knew at 10 a.m. they were going to raid my house.
Wait, I'm sorry. I don't know about this story. Can you start from like the beginning of the story? What okay, so you're friends with this person and
Mhm.
w- what led to this warrant in the first place?
So basically, when I had ran for office, there was, I mean, establishment picks and chooses winners and losers. We've all figured that out. We've all experienced that, and we've seen it through our elections. Well, this was a real thing. Like I was, they felt that I had a person come up to me. So a little bit of truth about some of the stuff. I had a person come up to me at an event. It was a group of people standing around, and the guy walks up and he says, "The people who make the choice of who wins and loses, they've already made the decision. You'll never win. You'll never win any race in the state of Kansas." And I'm like, pound sand, buddy. I'll do what I want. This is America. People are going to choose, right? They're going to vote
Mhm.
their heart. They're going to see a guy who doesn't want to do, food tax or property tax and wants to do things for, those among us that are, the most affected by gas prices and different types of taxation. And so anyway, and then I had someone else come up, hey, your phone's, tapped, just, thought you'd like to know. And I'm like, I figured as much. And but yeah, there was an entire effort to destroy anything they could. And so yeah, the guy I was having coffee with, and I actually ran into him about 6 months ago. He was looking for a federal appointment because he was aging out as a county judge. And so here's the nefarious part of it. So on my birthday that morning at 6 a.m., he had signed it. We met each other, saw each other at the coffee shop, and it was about, I don't know if it was about between 8 and 9. We're sitting there, and he left. So hey, Jim, happy birthday. And he knew at 10 a.m. they were going to be at my house. Well,
This is
I
a
can't remember what
judge
I was
you were
doing.
friends with?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah,
But
you can find him
was
still.
there did your attorney claim like bias? Like, oh, he personally is friends with this
Oh,
judge. He texts back
it
and
gets better.
forth with this
It gets
judge.
better. Yeah, I have his phone number, still my phone, and text messages that we sent to each other. So that morning he signs it. I get raided. They tear my house apart 6 ways a Sunday. I sit in my driveway for 6 hours. And then my probable cause statement, which is where you find out who signed the warrant. You get a copy of the warrant and you get a copy of what they said they were looking for. Well, that was sealed and redacted. They went through and black markered it out, the entire page, and then it was sealed by another
Mhm.
judge. And so you couldn't access it. So it took
Mhm.
3 attorneys and a year later to finally get that unsealed and unredacted. And then the signature was so scribbled that we had to do a process of elimination to find out who actually had, who was actually, who actually had signed it. So we basically narrowed it down. And then we found out that was actually what in the police reports that we finally got later. But the problem was, at that point, COVID had hit, all these other things that happened. So the first one, they came in and they dropped all the charges, and then they came in and raided again. And then they brought the prior charges up so they could get you on a 2 count that you were habitual. And so it puts you in a different sentencing box. So everything is exacerbated or worse than what it would seem. And so that was the thing. So yeah,
Okay.
so your judge
What
with
did
the probable cause statement should have been the reason that the entire case was thrown out. But the problem is
yeah,
the
what
judge
did
is
they
not going to go
say
against the judge.
what did they say was the probable cause?
That they had a confident informant state that I was dealing drugs to kids, and so
Uh,
they raided
did
the
they
house
give
for
you the
that.
name of the if it was in you saw the affidavit in the warrant, so you saw the
And it
name of
says
the
CI.
confidential informant?
Nope, it says CI. And it said
Uh,
CI said, and then they said that there was a Crime Stoppers report as well. So that gave them enough cause to come into the house and raid the house. So that was
wait,
the beginning of. Go ahead.
so then you went to court. Did you go to court already to deal
The
with
first, no,
this?
I went to go to my first appearance and they dropped the case. So went
Okay.
in, bailed out, went in to go and go to the first court date, and my attorney's like, well, you're not on the schedule here, and I'm like, well, I got a piece of paper right here says I'm supposed to be here at this date, and he goes, well, I realize that, and he goes, but I can't find you on the docket, and then went back in the judge's chambers to find out that the DA had dropped the charges.
That's nice. So you have no pending charges?
Anymore? No, I've already served my sentence. So
Oh, okay, so they dropped the case, but then they refiled it,
right
and
on the
then
second
after they
warrant, second no not work, they came in, and that's where they came in. When they came back in and raided the house, they brought up the prior arrest, so it shows an habitual, shows that I had been arrested
Mhm.
before. So this was a second set of charges. So it puts you in a different sentencing category, as if
Okay,
you had a
and so then
prior.
you went okay, and so then you went to court. Did you go to
Mhm.
trial or did you sign a plea agreement?
Okay, so I went in signing a plea agreement. Um, and so the plea agreement was supposed to be for paraphernalia. And so I sat there and I was sitting there talking to the attorney. And I'm like, okay, where are we at? And he's like, well, we can go to trial. You paid for a trial, blah blah blah. We got a pretty good chance, but they're going to give you paraphernalia, which is basically a heavy misdemeanor. It go you know you can get it. It goes away in 3 years or whatever it was. He gave me all the song and dance about why it was the best way to take it. And I'm like, okay, well, so it's paraphernalia. It's not anything. It's not going to affect anything in my life. Who cares? So, well, that's fine. We're already, I think at that point was what, 3 years of sitting around waiting for something to happen. And I said, all right, fine. We'll go with the paraphernalia. And when I agreed to that, signed that paper, went into the judge, and the judge then changed the charges. And then when the court recorded them into the actual ledger, they changed them again. So the problem is now I have charges that I never pled to that show up on my background, and now I'm going to have to go and raise more money to have an attorney go in and fight all that because I can't trust the first attorney that I used because he obviously led me to a bad well. He didn't hold up his end of the bargain by making sure that the court was doing what they said they would do. So I have to raise more money to go back and fight it and fight the fact that it was misrecorded into the record. But this is the problem. When they do this, they just destroy your life. It chips away at you where I've
Yeah,
sold
I've
everything
never
off.
heard of anything like this before. This is crazy,
Oh,
and this happens,
this
like,
is actually kind of
recently
normal.
too?
What's that?
How this is normal?
Oh yeah.
What you
Yeah. No, this happens in our court systems often. I mean, you've got to think about okay, so the Proud Boys case that just got released, where they found out that the FBI was actually, trying to eliminate 688 pages of evidence, where the FBI was going in and trying to manipulate them and had a plant, and the FBI agents were working directly against the Proud Boys to try to plant evidence. And actually, were going in and listening to the attorney-client privilege, all these different things that just got released 2 days ago. That's all over the internet on that. So
what do you
this
mean
is a
listening
normal
to the
thing.
attorney? Oh, you mean
The
like
FBI was.
the FBI were acting like Proud Boys and engaging in conversations with the Proud Boy attorney? Is that what you're saying?
No, no, they were actually listening in. Like they were listening into the phone calls, reading their text messages between the client and the attorney. That all came out in the
Okay.
middle of court. So
Oh, okay, I see. I see. Um, but that's a little bit different than signing a plea agreement and then having it show up on your record that you signed a different agreement. I've never heard. That's pretty crazy.
oh, actually, the stuff that they're finding out about some of this voter integrity stuff, some of the different things that are actually going on out there, you'd be surprised. There's a lot more of this going on, but people are, kind of like what you said, like, oh, this not happening. It's not a real thing. And the problem is that
Yeah.
the longer I've been around this, the more of these stories keep coming up to me, and I hear about the misjustice of different things. So where, they go in and they start pleading down, they do this and manipulate, and then, the charges get changed all the time. And that's another thing that the judge has a discretionary privilege that when you plea, according to what the paper you sign, you give up all your rights and the judge then has full autonomy over you. And so, even though I had agreed to one thing, the judge gets to make up whatever he wants, and then he can have that recorded any way he wants. So, in reality, I don't even know if I legally have a case to even go back and push back because it's his prerogative to charge me with whatever it is as soon as I plead to them.
I just, you know, so like when I graduated law school and then worked at the public defender's office,
Hmm.
I would help people with plea agreements literally all day. That was like all I did.
Yeah.
And we told people what rights that they were losing when they signed away on a plea, and
Yep.
you
I
lose
got the same
some
thing.
rights, but one of the things that we specifically say is that you don't lose the rights to appeal falsehoods. Like like completely
Well, that's not what I was told by my attorney. He goes, I know
non-factual.
that Kurt, my guy, the attorney I
Like
had, he told me, well, that's something you'll have to fight later on. I mean, he literally just led
like
me to the
the
gun.
situation you just described where you'd have like a complete misjustice. Uh, I'm blanking on the word right now, but when you completely lose the ability to gain justice,
Mhm.
uh, that's from the situation, then that's an appealable issue. So, for instance, you signing a plea agreement saying that you did X and the judge changing it to aggravated X plus Y and Z, that would be
Right.
an appealable thing.
Well, according to the
So, I'm
attorneys I've ran
wondering,
into, they told me to that I would have to go back and fight it. So that was really what I was up against.
yeah,
And
okay.
I,
Well,
I dealt with it as long as I could. So, and I ran out of money. That's the other thing
so
too, is I just ran out of money.
what when I like if you were to look up your record, even if it's not the plea agreement you signed, what would it say right now?
That I am a drug dealer.
Oh, that so, like, as opposed to the just paraphernalia, it was
Right. It would have
the
been
entire crime
paraphernalia.
of
Yeah. Yep.
does it say to minors specifically?
No, it just says paraphernalia. Not paraphernalia, but drug dealing. I'd have to go back and look at it again because I didn't get that information even from when I went through probation. It was different then. The problem is that the information I was given over different times would never matched, and so trying to go back and verify that is actually the hard part. So I just have to go back and fight it, all the way.
Yeah.
So,
Um, so
but nobody wants
what
to do
was
that
your
for free.
sentence?
So, 1 year
Yeah.
probation.
Well, have you reached out to the ACLJ?
I don't even know who they are.
Oh, they're like the ACLU, but for conservatives.
Hmm.
They have a really
Okay.
big YouTube presence and take on cases for free, specifically when conservatives are being taken advantage of in the legal system.
Right.
Um, like, have you reached out to organizations to free attorneys?
No. Not at all.
Okay,
Most
yeah,
of it, I
there's like
mean,
a
because
ton of them out.
I just looked at it as an idea that I needed to go take care of this on myself. I didn't think it was something I needed to go for charity. So I would just go and
Yeah,
so
but especially like if your sentence is only probation, and you're like, "Wow, I've been good all my life. Like I haven't done what I'm even accused of, so I could be good for a year." Right?
yeah, and I did all that. I went through everything. I was off probation last June. But
Oh,
the idea is that it does affect things, and it really doesn't affect it. Doing what I do now, it doesn't affect me at all. But it's also the idea that I don't want something that's just factually inaccurate or there's an injustice there, and it's one of the things that probably bothers me the most. It's really not. I mean, it's already over. Everything's done. But it's just the idea that
yeah.
it's out there.
Um, s- yeah, that is tough, but you're still able to vote, right?
Yeah, yeah. I still
And
have the
like
right to
own a
vote.
gun and like own
After 10 years,
firearms.
in the state of Kansas, you
Oh,
can vote.
okay. Okay. All right. So, but if you were to move states, would you then gain your rights to a gun again? So, like if you were to
I
move to
don't know.
Texas,
I haven't really looked that up or anything. I'm not sure on that one. So
you're not like an avid hunter.
no, I haven't hunted since I was in high school.
You hunted in high school though?
Yeah, yeah. We had a gun rack in the truck. I mean, this is part of what you did. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so what has been the most so you went from radio to like social media. How was that transition?
well, the radio and the social media was almost instantaneous because the first day I went to the studio, I started broadcasting live out on Facebook, and then I got the Restream account set up, and so I started going out on Twitch and D Live and Twitter, and YouTube. So there were a lot of my those major channels was getting my live feed on Saturday nights. And then 3 years ago, uh, 3 years ago yesterday, to be exact, I started the daily update because we had that death ticker going on the show, or on the on the TV. Everybody was talking about how everybody's dying and all this other stuff, and so we were so I got it started doing a daily update, and then that parlayed into a TV show in Connecticut on Sky 13 and cable there statewide, and then it just kept growing.
Is there anyone that's still recording the number of deaths, COVID deaths? Is that a thing that's still being calculated?
No, not that I know of. That's all been debunked as being the flu and other things like that. So we know that that's not accurate anymore.
Yeah. I mean, um, I understand that censorship was really bad on YouTube like a long
Mhm.
time ago. But I mean, you've said some things on here already this stream, whereas 2 years ago we would have been shut down already. So it
Oh,
has
they had to
gotten
cut the feed
better.
on us. Yeah. I mean, they would have cut the feed on us, but they'll probably, it's very, it all depends on the bots too. I remember the bots that were out there. That was amazing. You could pick up on who they were almost immediately. But anyway, it's a little different now. Not as good as, not as good as it should be. I really, honestly, I'm really kind of surprised that there are platforms out there that limit us in any way whatsoever. Because the problem is when you limit people, you're shutting portions of your potential down, right? And to me, it's all about views and all that, right?
Well, I mean, limit in any way whatsoever. So what about CP, you know? If you
What's
had
that?
a
Go ahead.
platform, like think about the worst thing imaginable that CP could possibly stand for. Um,
Oh, I
like
see what you're saying. Sorry. Okay, I wasn't following you.
yeah.
I
So, like,
apologize.
if you had a platform which everybody knew, like, oh, you could share whatever you wanted, so then you got a bunch of,
Well, the child
um,
porn would obviously be the
math.
limitation, right? Right.
I'm avoiding
No, I
using the
get
word
that.
because it hurts your algo, but, yeah, so well, that you say that's the one limitation, but then I can find more and more limitation, you know what I mean? Like, we could play that
No.
game. Like, I could find more and more
Well,
gross
the
stuff, so it's like
pulpit is the
everybody has to draw a
original.
line.
The pulpit is the original censorship platform anyway. The churches have been limiting speech and what words we can use and what time you can use other words. So speech was always been censored through the church. So I'm not really sure. I mean, we act like it's just a political ideology, but in reality, the church has been doing it for as long as we've had recorded history.
So you're not religious, right?
Absolutely. I'm a Baptist.
Oh, you're a Baptist. So
So it's
if
that's
you're for freedom of speech, but you believe
Mhm.
that the church is limiting speech?
Oh,
So
absolutely. I
I
think they're
get
limiting speech. Yeah. I don't
but
agree with it. I think the church has overstepped its bounds when it's gone beyond what is just, for, to do with their is guidance, but they're not supposed to be, dictating from the pulpit. And that's the problem is they've used politics and religion together for thousands of years. And it's
do you
just the censorship. Good.
do you think that the church is, like, currently violating our First Amendment?
Absolutely.
Can you give, like, a concrete example?
Well, the word of the FCC rules you can't say on air. I mean, those are the same pulpit words that you can't use cuss words. You can't use God's name in vain. Yet we don't use the word vain in the proper definition. The fact that we have limited certain types of phrases that we can't use because it's in the church, and we have, even people like, oh, he double hockey stick. I mean, why is it that we can have the word hell, but then we can't say hell? This is the hypocrisy.
So, I understand where you're coming from, but aren't all laws based on morals? And aren't all
Mm-mm,
morals overlap? Like, so for
mm-mm,
instance, at least all of our basic laws, right? Or all of our laws come from either morality or safety. So, like,
mm-mm.
not
No, it's all about
murdering
control. All
people.
laws, all laws are actually when you're talking about the morality laws, like thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. Those are called personal crimes. Personal crimes can be not, they're not defined by morality. Personal crimes means you've harmed somebody else, and then that level of morality is up to the individual. The problem is we have ordinances, guidelines, and what we call laws that actually limit us and have nothing to do with being there's no victim, there's no crime. Our Supreme Court has actually said that 12 or 13 different times, that if there's no victim, there's no crime, and the city, county, state, and the federal government can't be the victim. Yet we have people that are constantly being charged by the city, county, and state and the federal government. So again, we're actually, it just depends on how the law is administered. But the problem is that we are limited not by morality, but by harming other peoples. That's what the whole Constitution was about, is that you can't do harm to other people.
So you don't think, like, for instance, in the beginning of our country, we had a lot of laws based on, sexual orientation. Don't you think those laws were a derivative of what society thought about morality at the
Actually,
time?
when our
And
country was
that
founded,
was
the only
derivative of
laws we
church?
had when our country was founded, the only laws we had was the Constitution. We didn't have things that were outside of that. We've actually added those on over time because somebody has asked for something for safety, to make a wrong, try to make a wrong right. A lot of the laws we have are way outside of what the Constitution says, and it says anything outside of the Constitution is repugnant, which means that basically every law and ordinance that we actually pertain to, or that we kowtow to, is actually against the Constitution. It's actually that simple. We
So,
really believe that we need more laws to create morality.
okay, let me ask you this one. Are states requiring driver's license to drive, is that constitutional or unconstitutional?
Unconstitutional.
So, do you recommend that people don't get a driver's license then?
Oh no, you're gonna if you're gonna maintain operating a vehicle according to their laws, you better make sure that you do as they're told. But according to our Constitution, to travel is not a privilege. It's actually a right, and it is their duty to maintain our lanes of commerce. The problem is we don't even talk about what their actual duties are in the course of commerce. Those public roadways, those public right of ways were given to them to manage to make sure that our flow of commerce was never inhibited.
Um, okay. So then what about like state constitutions? Don't they create laws that are outside of the federal constitution? And then like state,
Um,
so are all state statutes unconstitutional as well?
the states, individual state rights supersede the federal government. And so the idea that we have an issue where we decide as a state, remember, everything is at the local level, everything's from the bottom up. We're not a top down federalist model that Lincoln put us into. The problem is that we as individual states supersede the federal government. The federal government has two functions: immigration and national security. That's it. Everything else
So
is
if,
outside of their purview.
so if the states supersede the federal government, then wouldn't the state laws on the driving be a constitutional thing?
And then the state constitutions have the same path as the federal that you're thinking of, with the right for commerce. So the problem is we actually, even in our own state laws, it even talks about that we have the right to commit commerce on right of ways, and then we do not have to be privileged through licensures. And then the problem is we don't even know that law ourselves because we're too busy running around following the ordinances and guidelines that actually aren't laws at all. But the problem is the judges, the DAs, and even the attorneys that you'll go hire, they all play in the same sandbox, and they'll go, "Oh yeah, no, this is legal. This is what we always do." But in 1913, the IRS was never ratified through the Convention of States, and it was gone out on a Christmas Eve that the Secretary of State said that they had ratified it to the press pool, and it went out, and that's it. I mean, the sad part of it is we're doing so many things because we're told that's the way it is. And in actuality, if you do your homework and you find out that it actually isn't that way, but here's the thing: go tell the IRS to stay out of your checking account. They're not going to do it. They're going to do what they want because they can, because there's nobody pushes back on them, because nobody has the money to go fight the federal government for your money back after they've already taken it.
So couldn't somebody or like a group of people just not pay their taxes and then when they get sued by the IRS, like all do a countersuit claiming that the IRS has no constitutional right to function.
Yep. And then you should be able to do that. But the problem is the bar associated judge and the bar associated prosecutor and the bar associated attorney that you have all have the same bar associated license. And you expect them to play fair with you when they're the ones that benefit from this system and making sure that you are always caught up in their trap. I mean, they're not going to let you out. The sad part of this is
So
this
are
is all very basic stuff.
so are people who are part of the bar, are they typically corrupt?
I don't know. My observation is I haven't found any that actually aren't corrupt. The ones that are actually in there playing in the sandbox and doing the things that they do to people every single day, knowing what's really going on and how this works. Those are the ones I really have to question. It's like, what have you sold your soul to? What have you gone into that you think it's okay to watch people walk down a sentencing path that you know is absolutely unjust? The problem is we don't default to freedom. We default to incarceration in everything we're doing. Our laws and our things that we have do not give us the freedoms that are guaranteed to the Constitution, which limits our government, never us. The Constitution is a document that says, government, you stay over there. These people have all kinds of rights that we're not even going to list here, but here's some specific ones that we think you need to listen to.
Okay, so how would you fix the system?
Well, the problem is that I would actually start letting things sunset. I would actually start pulling things back and going back to Black Law's dictionary and the fact that the Constitution was all that we ever needed. But the problem is that requires self-governance. And if you
Just the
don't have the right
federal
kind of
constitution?
oh no, the
Just the
individual state
federal
rights come
constitution?
first. No, no, no. The
So
federal
all the
constitution is
state
actually what supports
constitution.
the state right. Right. Have
So
you read the
we would
Bill of
need
Rights
all
in
the
your own state
state.
constitution? Go ahead.
I have. Yes,
Mhm.
I am. I just took the bar in my own state and in the Florida state, which you kind of need to know the Constitution for. So yes, I have.
Mhm.
Bill of Rights are very similar, typically. So
Mhm.
Florida Bill of Rights very similar to the um, federal. Florida Constitution has extra provisions. However, they have things called homestead, which is not in the federal Constitution. So, uh, and then they have like taxing provisions. Um, and then Arizona has things in their constitution that's not in the federal constitution, such as like the Victims Bill of Rights and stuff like that. So yes, I have definitely read my state constitutions. Have you read your
Mhm.
state constitutions?
Oh yeah, the Bill of Rights. Yeah, I've read it over and over again on my show. It's what I go back to constantly when people ask questions about it. Sad part of it is we don't refer to the language in our Constitution the way it's actually written. No different than a well-regulated militia is a well-practiced people's army. Has nothing to do with regulation or the barrel length or how many freedom fries come out of a gun. But in reality, that's
Mm.
actually about the fact that we maintain those arms so that our government does not become tyrannical and do as it will. But the problem is now we've got an issue that we have a tyrannical government that's doing as they want, but using legal guise or the letter of the law to do as they want. And we're seeing the victimhood of that selective prosecution across the board.
Well, I do agree that we are seeing issues with selective prosecution. Um, I do agree with that. And I probably agree with you 90% of the way. I disagree with you when you start saying things like you have a right to travel and therefore states don't have
Mhm.
a right to regulate cars on a road.
Yeah.
Um,
No.
I
Slippery slope. That's the
what?
problem is that's the government giving you permission to operate something you already own. So it's actually a property rights issue. It has more to do with that than it actually the right of ways that we've given them to operate our commerce on. That's the problem is we've walked away from what was originally called commerce. And that's where it all ties back to.
So the whole commerce issue,
Mhm.
you you still have a right to sell your goods. You always and you do have a constitutional right to travel. You're more than welcome to get in an Uber, hire a truck driver, have a pilot fly you anywhere in the nation you want to go. But the Constitution doesn't say anything about you having a right to get behind the wheel of a 2,000-pound killing machine and run around on highways. Because if that were true, then why can't a 5-year-old have a right to drive?
I didn't limit him. Your government did.
So
The
you
problem
think a
is we have
5-year-old
kids that
should
are
have a
5,
right to
6, and
drive?
7-year-olds that are driving 10-ton tractors around the farm. 5, 6, 7-year-olds are driving 10-ton tractors around the farm. They're handling the wheat truck on their private property, and it happens every day in our country. And these kids could do this every day.
So
They're all the way through all the high school till they get their driver's license. My son had a farmer's permit at 14 years of age and drove back and forth to school. So the problem
I was
is
just gonna
that
say, you
we
could
don't
have
have
a
that issue.
farmer's permit in certain states. I was just gonna say, you could
But you
have
can
a
drive
farmer's
your
permit in certain
farmland
states.
as much as you want. So
Um, can a 5-year-old operate? Maybe, but either way, the
So on my
government has the
private
right to
property, I'm
regulate
allowed to do
public
whatever I
space,
want. Okay.
but what
But those
about in
kids
a
on the,
public, do you think a 5-year-old should have a right to drive down the freeway?
I think anybody who has the ability to operate the vehicle can do whatever they want. That's it. Full stop. So the
So,
problem is I
yes.
start going in and I want to pick and choose who I can limit, then they can pick and choose how they limit me as well.
Okay. So, yes, a 5-year-old can
If we want to go to that
do
extreme,
that?
I will answer that yes. Why don't we say it's a 1-year-old? I don't have a problem with that either. See, the
Because the
problem is it's
problem
not,
is
doesn't matter to me.
so the problem is who's gonna pick and choose which 5-year-olds or 1-year-olds for that matter are capable, have
Not
the
my business.
mental capacity.
I'm not going to
It's not
limit
your
somebody
business.
else. Why would somebody else action be my business? See, that's where we've all gotten this
Well,
wrong. We
because
all
y
think that we need to tell each other
mhm.
what to do, and we really shouldn't be.
The problem is roads would be completely
Would they?
unfunctional if we just allowed.
Would we didn't
Yeah,
have laws in
they
the
would.
on the road. We didn't have right of way laws for a long, long time. We didn't have right of way laws when we had, steam engines going down the road. We didn't have right of way laws on horses and buggies and all kinds of other things that we invented over the years. So, well, they're playing a video of a kid driving a tractor. I don't know. I don't know who your producer is there, but yeah, it's a kid driving a tractor. So, but that's a small 9 in Ford. But the idea is that we
Our
can't limit
producer
ourselves.
is
We've
named
been,
Henry,
hey, Henry.
and yeah, he's a good lad. He wishes he was American, don't you, Henry? He's not an American, poor lass. So that's fine. Um, Look, the problem is we have certain regulations in place. Technology is as technology develops, we put new laws in place to regulate those technology, and that is constitutionally legal
No, it's not.
under
It's
the
not.
Commerce
It doesn't say
Clause
as
of the Fifth
technology
Amendment.
gains sophistication that we need to maintain laws with the sophistication of the object
No,
we
but what it
operate.
does say under the Fifth Amendment is the Commerce Clause, which means that anything that interfect in aggregate affects interstate commerce, Congress has the right to regulate, and therefore, when technology grows and affects interstate commerce, Congress then gains the right to regulate it. So something that affects interstate commerce would be um, driving, and Congress can give the right to the states to regulate how people drive.
Never. I'll never accept that as the answer. There's no way. The
Well,
problem is that we continue to
do
think
you
that
accept that there's a
no, I'm a,
Commerce Clause in the Fifth
I'm gonna tell
Amendment?
you right now, the more that we continue to
The
think we
Commerce
need to
Clause.
limit each other, the more we will be limited in the cages we build for ourselves. This is a
Do
slippery
you
slope. Well,
agree that the
we justify it.
federal okay, do you agree that the federal government, sorry, the Constitution has a Commerce Clause?
Sure, we'll go with that. Yeah.
Okay, do
I'm
you
I'm gonna
agree that
agree
the
with you on your path because that's what you want, but I'm telling you right now, absolutely
No,
dead
I don't
stop. They
wanna
have no right to restrict me in any way whatsoever. The government is restricted by the Constitution, never the people. That's the problem with that is we don't limit each other. We're limiting the government with the Constitution.
Okay, but do you agree that there's like that Congress has the right to
No,
regulate?
they do not have the right to limit me in any fashion whatsoever.
Congress doesn't. So they
Nope.
have no right to regulate.
Nope.
Okay, would
Nope.
you, how about this?
They were
Do you
they were
think,
actually supposed to be setting budgets and not limitations on people. See, we've already
okay,
this is where we've given away everything through the federalist model that Lincoln put us into. We keep thinking the government has the right to tell us anything, and it absolutely has never said that. And it's sad that we've continued to sit there and talk about the Constitution as limiting people, and it doesn't. It limits the government, and it tells the government what they can and cannot do. And what it tells them is they have to stay out of our lives. Period.
right, and it tells the government what they can and cannot do.
Mhm.
So what I'm trying to
Which is
say
leave us
is,
alone and you can go do your commerce, you can go do your interstate commerce or international commerce, but you can't affect us in our interstate. That's the other
no,
problem is
no,
we've let things get put in there that have nothing to do with what our original rights were. We're not limited by the government.
okay, even if that's
And by the way, this is
constitutionally,
water. I'm not drinking old a mule or anything
you're
here.
allowed to drink whatever the hell
No,
you want. You're in America, dear sir. You can have a whiskey for all I care. I don't give a shit. But
no, just water
um,
for me.
wouldn't you agree that, okay, even if you agree that like it's constitutionally the government's not supposed to regulate the people, would you agree that the Supreme Court has determined at some point that the Fifth Amendment means that Congress could regulate any activity which, in its aggregate, affects interstate commerce?
Supreme Court only gives guidance. The only one who can actually do anything to affect us in any way is what laws we allow for our representatives, our public servants to actually put forth. And the fact that it says that we cannot be limited by our government, anything they have to say does not limit me. See, I'm going to go right back to that exact same argument no matter what you give me. I don't care if it's flying planes, I don't care if it's dynamite, I don't care what it is. As long as you're not messing with me and messing with my property, I don't care what you do. And if we don't start
No, I'm
taking
not
that
going to give
attitude about our
you.
freedoms, all right, go ahead.
I'm not going to give you flying planes. I just want to. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You're very good
Flying
at.
flying planes is actually the easy part. Yeah, flying planes are way
Sorry,
easier.
I don't want. But like, I'm trying to remember the court case. Henry will have to Google it. United States Supreme Court case. It was about farmers and how much wheat they could grow within like a acre, or maybe it was a square. I think it was how much wheat they were allowed to grow on a square foot. And Congress was allowed to limit it because in aggregate, selling wheat affects interstate commerce. And so the Supreme Court was deciding on that case, and they determined, thank you, Wickard v. Filburn. So the Supreme Court decided on that case that,
I can't quote
uh,
Wikipedia.
no,
We gotta
okay,
get a
then
better source than Wikipedia.
please go to Wickard Filburn, because that's the correct case. Could you just look that up using, I don't know, you don't have Westlaw. I'll have to give you my Westlaw account, Henry, later. But whatever legally
See,
site
again,
you
we
can
think
find
the
it on.
Supreme Court has some type of legislative power over us, and they don't have anything. They don't have any type of
Well,
power over us whatsoever, and they can interpret the laws in the way they want. But the problem is we the people have all the rights. Period. And the fact that we even think that there's a reason that our legislators should be making laws for us, we have lost our way. We've absolutely lost our way. We have gone so far out of, and then this is the sad part. Hey, you know what? I halfway agree with you, Lauren. I halfway agree. That's like, yeah, we need laws to keep little 12-year-olds from driving down the freeway. But the problem is that they don't even realize that we were never limited. And we did this for a long time without any limitations. But then we started thinking, oh, more laws, more laws, more laws. What was it? We only had a handful of quote unquote federal laws up until 1900. And then since then, we've put on so many in the federal level, we can't even count them all. It's where you start in a
um,
slippery slope of things and where do you stop?
can you look up the term interstate commerce, because that's all that matters. Uh, spelled Interrestate. So I understand, like, and I agree with you. Like, I am very pro freedom. I watched the way that our Constitution was trashed during COVID. I personally was fired for not getting vaccinated, and the law which was put in place, which mandated my private employer fire me, even though he was a conservative and agreed with me. Um, that law was later found to be unconstitutional. So I remember being personally affected by laws that I swore were unconstitutional and having them affect my life anyway. The problem is, um, like, the way the structure of our country and our laws are set up is the final arbiter, according to Mayberry v. Madison, a different Supreme Court case, the final arbiter of what the Supreme Court says is, sorry, not what the Supreme Court says, what the Constitution says is the Supreme Court. They are the judges, they are the nonpartisan judges that determine what the Supreme Court originally said.
So, according to what we understand our courts was to be, is actually it was about settling disputes. It wasn't about them dictating to us what laws we abide by and what penalties those will be. The problem is we've given too much power to judges, and that all goes back to the 1971 Corporation Agreement between the Vatican and the City of London. So the problem is we're living under a maritime law system with the gold fringe flag. At the end of the day, we have a system that is absolutely built to keep us in prisons, and we've been living with this for so long. We accept their abilities to then usurp their power to us. We're not subjugated under court at all. The courts were there to balance things, to create a decision between two people if there was a victim or not. And we've gone so far away. Jim is against child pornography laws. He thinks people should be allowed to access child porn.
What?
Oh,
Okay, what would you do? What would you do to fix the system then?
If here's a problem when you say that I am against child pornography laws. The problem is when there is a victim, there is a crime, and when you have a child that is being victimized through sexual pornography, there's a victim. So don't say that I'm against child laws. Well, I was talking to one of your boys here.
I don't think I. Oh, yeah.
On your comments.
I have trolls in my chat. Welcome to YouTube.
John
This
Golf
is the
there
land
has
of the
been
trolls. Yeah, John Golf. Hi, Johnny boy. How are you? Hope you're well.
He's the one that said I'm against child pornography laws. So.
And I'm sure he's called me a bitch-faced horse tooth. You know, like that's just kind of John Golf for you. But he's just whatever. That's just how John Golf is. Don't worry about the trolls too much. Don't let them get to you. Yeah, okay. But I hear what you're saying. I lost my train of thought.
The problem is and the thing is morality that you have inside of you and what you go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to ask you about the flags. Like, what significance do you find to like the goldfinch flag?
Fringe flag. The maritime law. I mean, this is all stuff that is actually the Military Code of Justice and UCC laws. This is actually the gold fringe flag has been flying since 1871. We've been under maritime law. That's why the courts are set up the way they are. We didn't have black robe judges in our court systems up until 1871. We've actually been subjugated by the crown for so long that we believe that we're separate, but they've actually been maintaining their finger on the colonists, and that's how it's always been. That's why we're in the Federalist model we have now, where we think that the government gives us rights, and in fact, it's not that way at all. We're the ones that give them the power to go out and legislate things that we want from them.
But like when I look at how the government functions, obviously there's corruption underneath that is affecting its function. Like there's the swamp. But as you watch court cases proceed and as bills go through and yada yada, they're following all the rules that the Constitution has put forth. So I'm confused by what you
So
mean by
a
we're
jury
like
of my
subjugated to
peers,
some crowd.
a jury of my peers is not registered voters in a district. A jury of my peers is actually my coworkers, my church members, my neighbors, and my family. And the fact that we do not have a
Mm.
jury of our peers, the people that actually know us and that we select for ourselves, not through the approval of the prosecutor, but actually through our, having our judgment to who we want to see the case and what we think how they think that they'll think about us. See, that's the problem
Wouldn't they
is
be
we don't even
biased
use that
then?
properly. Oh, absolutely.
Wouldn't
They
are
should
they
be because the government is not here to help us. Our government has been limiting us at every chance they get. No way should we have ever given away that power to let the government pick their portion of those jurors. Yes, I want it to be my friends that judge me. I don't want strangers that I don't know because those are not my peers. See, my peers that could mean then you bring the jury in from Hawaii because they're just Americans. Registered voters doesn't mean that there are actually our peers.
hmm.
See,
So
we've allowed we just, I mean, it's just that there's a little slippery slope. We just keep letting
is there
things get away
anywhere
from
in
us.
the Constitution where it says like a jury of your peers means like friends, coworkers, and church
Well,
members?
what would
Like
you call your peers?
I I I think the reason that they use the term peer is because they mean like mind, non-attorney type, non non-person of the like non-person who is representative of the government, somebody without an interest, but would be of a similar situation to you. So, I mean, if it's
So a
really
similar
supposed to only
situation to
be a
me would be
jury.
my place of work, my worship, my neighborhood, people that actually know me, not registered voters. See, that's the thing is we only pull the jury pool from registered voters.
Okay, so let me put it to you. What if you're like some incel who lives in the woods and has no friends and literally talks to nobody for like 30 years, and then
Okay.
you go out and you run 30 people over with your car? Okay, who are your peers to judge you? Should you have no jury because you have no peers? Like who
Well,
are, or do you have to go find
I
other
mean, you want to cherry
incels?
pick the rarest of the rare. I'm sure that's exactly
I'm
what you
just
did there, but
saying
no, I'm still
I'm
saying
just
it
saying
has to
it's
be
not a
people he knows.
pure.
You cannot bend that law or that rule to fit the idea that you isolated him into a rarest position of all. Doesn't mean that the law quits existing, that your peers are people you know. And if nobody knows you, then you have no peers. So you have
So
no jury. So there is no conviction.
wait, so you would say that there's no conviction for that man
Nope.
in that
No
scenario I
peers.
just gave
You have no peers.
because
No
he
one
has
knows who
a.
you are. You're a complete island, unknown to anybody.
You are really selling. If this were true, if the laws
If this
worked
were
like that,
true, no,
I
it
would
only
be in
exists
the middle of the woods. I would
if
be
this and
totally
this
by
if this
myself
wasn't
hunting for
true.
food.
Here's the problem. The problem is
Mm.
that we don't realize how true this is because we've given into a system that doesn't exist. The problem is we've given over power to black robe judges. We've given over power to legislators, and we're like, oh, well, make more laws for me, make more laws. No, I want to know how you're going to set me free. And by you giving me a tax cut, that's not a tax cut. You're giving me my money back. You should have never been taking my money to begin with. The sad part of it is we think that they're doing us favors by hiring the tax rate on the rich and lowering it for the poor. That's some kind of gift. But taxation is
But
theft. It's slavery. It's
so
absolutely not part of our country. We fought against this. We bled and died for this.
so one of the common things that you will appeal during an appeals process is that you had not like had an unfair jury pool. It wasn't a jury of your peers. Um, and I've read several cases on the issue, and I have never once read, not even like an old case like from the 1700s or
Mhm.
1800s, in which someone argued that they didn't know the people in their jury, that they weren't like that they didn't recognize. That's never once been an issue that I've heard of until this moment.
Not gonna change my mind. I don't think that we should
Where
be
did
able to
you
be
get that
judged by
idea?
people who have no idea who we are. That's not fair to us. Why would we want strangers
So,
doing that? Why don't we just do it
are
over
you
Zoom from people from Zimbabwe? We don't know
are
them
you
as well as
getting
they
these
don't know us.
Are you
Go ahead.
getting these concepts from concepts of fairness, or are you reading these ideas somewhere, or did you think that these were the original ideas of the founding fathers, which have since been misinterpreted?
Oh, I think they've absolutely been misinterpreted because they've been able to go in and whittle away our rights. I mean, we've been doing this for a little over 200 years, and it's whittled away over time. It's an erosion. It's not something that happened one day. It just takes a little drip, a little bit of heat, a little bit of heat, and next thing you know, you don't even know what you have anymore. We're so far away from our original truth that to have freedom scares you. I mean, one thing that you've actually proven is that you are terrified that other people would have the ability to do as they see fit in any way they want to at any age. That terrifies you, and that shouldn't. That should empower you.
Um, it's not that it terrifies me. It's just that, like, now that I feel like I really understand how the government structure is set up and how everything works, I don't see how, like, I could see certain laws and instantly be like, "That's unconstitutional." Like, for instance, a lot of the COVID laws, I was shocked they got passed because I was like, "That is clearly unconstitutional." Like, I may be, uh, 1L in law school, but I know that's unconstitutional, and, I ended up being right, though. Whereas, like, I've seen a lot of these arguments that you're putting forth in a different community, in the sovereign citizen community. They put forward a lot of these arguments, and I talk to sovereign citizens all the time. We've had several people on this show. Jim, can you confirm your current address? Fox 7, Kansas is looking to know. I have trolls, I'm sorry. But, that's kind of, uh, like, with everything that I've seen in the government, I'm not seeing, like, so, like, with the sovereign citizen arguments, such as the driving one, I don't see
I didn't say
regulation
sovereign
of driving
citizen.
cars.
I never once mentioned sovereign citizen whatsoever.
No, I mentioned sovereign citizen, and the reason that
Right.
I'm mentioning sovereign citizen is because I've heard a lot of these arguments, include specifically the lack of driver's license ones, and I only hear these arguments from people who would be considered sovereign citizens.
I don't know
Do
if
you
that
know the
was that a
sovereign
question or a statement or what was I don't know what that.
I like, do you know the sovereign citizen community? Do you, I mean, have you spoken to sovereign citizens before?
Oh, I know people who actually claim to say they're sovereign citizens, but I think it's very dangerous, specifically with the idea that the appetite of the judges and DAs and the people who are the policy enforcers, they don't play that game. They don't want to play that game. And whether those people are right or not, it's absolutely an issue where we have a judicial system that believes that they can do what they wish, and we don't have those rights anymore. They've eroded away. All the stuff that I'm talking about doesn't exist in our court system. There's no way that I can stand in front of a judge and say that the laws that we have are repugnant outside of the Constitution, and he'll say, "Well, bye," and it's over.
Well, I mean, you had like Roe v. Wade, right? And so
Which was
people
a
thought like
privacy
that was
issue.
so people thought that was over because it had reached a Supreme Court decision. It had been settled for decades. But then you went all the way back up through the judicial process. And once again, the Supreme Court, as the final
The Supreme
arbiter
Court
of
does
what the
not dictate law to
Constitution.
Americans. The problem is they're only there to dispute or to solve disputed items. They're not there to make a judgment of law. And we've given that power over to the judicial system. I don't know why we've done that. Judicial system is never set up to actually legislate law or have one judge, stop the entire world from turning according to his decision when he wants to put a stay on something. We've given way too many powers to people that should be giving us their opinion and so that we're able to resolve a conflict, but yet they're legislating from the bench. We're absolutely
I
in the dead wrong
agree.
with letting that happen.
No, I agree that legislating from the bench is wrong, and I agree that giving, like, it is unconstitutional to give um, like advice from the bench to give decisions before there's an issue before them. And it's called advisory decisions. That being said, I don't believe the Supreme Court ruling on Roe v. Wade nor their ruling on Dobbs was an advisory decision. It seems like they had a case in front of them was standing that was not moot and was ripe for decision. And they made a finding that overruled a previous Supreme Court decision because the Supreme Court is the final arbiter of what is constitutional, even more so than.
No. That's where we keep giving up our rights to people that are not legislators. Judges are not to dictate legislation from the bench. And that's what we keep giving over to them. You just did it again. I mean, we don't need to give these judges that kind of power. I mean, that's the slippery slope we've gotten ourselves on, that we keep accepting them as being the final say, and they can dictate to us how we live our lives.
Well, that was for Marbury v. Could you pull up Marbury v. Madison for me on a like a legalese type site again, Henry, please? And when you're doing that, can you please look at the date of that decision for me, please?
Again, a judge's decision on a case does not determine legislation. It doesn't matter if you pull up 12 of them. But the problem is we have already had, if you want to go off of that, we had the Supreme Court said, 12 times that the city, county, state, and the federal government can't be a victim, but they still do that. So which way do we want this? Is that they're going to legislate from the bench or they're not?
So this is an 1803 decision, and Marbury v. Madison. If you could find holding, Henry, that would be great. If you can't find that, that's fine. But the holding of this case is that the Supreme Court is the final. Okay, so Congress does not have the power to pass laws that override the Constitution, such as by expanding the scope of the Supreme Court's original jurisdiction. So that is like the primary holding. Like that's the primary holding if you're looking at really narrow, but the more wider holding is that the Supreme Court has final determination on what is constitutional.
So
if they want to change,
a judge says that a judge gets to make the final recommendation. So a judge says, "Hey, we get to make the final." That's not how that works. I mean, the thing is that's legislating from the bench again.
No, so like Congress, right? They get to legislate. They get to write the laws. But once the laws are written, it's the courts that get to interpret what the laws say. And so the Supreme Court has the final decision on what the Constitution said.
They were there to be problem solvers, not legislate from the bench. They're there to settle a dispute between two parties, one being a victim and one and the other is being the perpetrator. And that's it. The problem is that we've gotten so far away from what courts really should be that we think that we do everything through the bench. And that's why we've gotten where we are, where you're proving the point that we keep going back to a judge's decision to be what we live by. And it's sad.
But this was like when our founding fathers were still around, like people who, while
we allowed that to start happening instantly. Yeah. Should never happen. Should never happen.
So it's hard to imagine that we're doing a better job interpreting what the founding fathers meant right now than the people who broke bread with the founding fathers.
Again, I don't think we legislate from the bench. I think everything through the Constitution outside of that is repugnant.
Did you read that? Can you explain why?
Yeah, can you explain about the 129 grams of dabs? Well, actually, if you misquoted, I'm not going to answer it, so we'll move on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, don't answer whatever you don't want to answer. Was that having to do with that court case thing that you were?
Oh, it's actually the articles that are written about me out there. You can actually go find them. The mug shots are not even the mug shot from the situation that I was arrested for. So, no big deal.
I'm sorry. Well, Where did you start finding all of this information about, like, the interpretation of the Constitution and the gold flags and, maritime law and commerce, all of that?
Well, the sad part of it is it's really not that hard to find. It's just that we have been led to believe that things can exist, even though that's the way they were written. And we're not taught to go look for these answers. We're not taught how to look for these answers or ask that next level question.
So, but what got you into looking for it?
When I saw the different things that I was abused through going through the systems, the more abuse I went through, the more I wanted to find out why it is they were able to do those things. And when I felt like I wasn't getting justice served, I had to go find out why. And then you find out that it's all the same sandbox. It's all the same players. They go to lunch with each other. I mean, I knew all these things. I knew I was having coffee with a judge and an attorney, what, 3 to 5 times a week at the same coffee shop? I mean, I knew these guys. I understood the system, and then when it started happening to me, and I watched them walk away, even though they knew exactly what was going on, it's a telltale sign.
Yeah, no, I understand corruption. Like I get that. I do. I understand. I'm dealing with my own stuff. So I get that. So I'm really sorry to hear that you went through anything like that. Um, well, I think we're good enough. Is there anything else that you wanted to uh, say before we take questions from the audience? Any other
No,
final
that
notes
was
on
good. I
freedom?
just wish we understood that the freedoms and liberties that we have washed away and given away to other people that we never had to, and that we've limited ourselves and put ourselves in cages that were never built for us, and we think that they exist, but it's a sad deal. I wish we had more liberties and freedoms to do as we wanted.
Um, yeah, so Nasty Nathaniel agrees with you. He is quite an interesting character. Um, okay, we let them take our rights. Yeah, what do we do now to fix it?
Well, the biggest part of it is actually, when you start, you have to get to know your sheriff. And this is the only path I've seen on this whole thing. And this is a sad part is if a lot of your constitutional sheriffs are out there and they're doing their part to actually, make sure and limit the government and keep them out of your property, keep them out of your personal business, not going after you for, speeding and other petty type things. They actually go and do their job. And the sad part of it is when you actually, you know, see that the police department's actually become an extension of the city council, it really shows you how they're tainted and they can be manipulated. Well, then you see how that whole thing with, the DAs and the judges. Well, the problem is until there's somebody within that system that either whistleblowes or creates a daylight effect where we start disinfecting all the corruption that goes on inside the courtrooms, we're never going to get justice. The sad part of it is I don't know what really the path is other than start with your county judge, your county sheriffs, build up a relationship with them so that way you can actually find out where he stands, find out what your limitations are according to the government and what he's doing to limit the government in your daily life. Too many times that we have constitutional sheriffs and we have unconstitutional sheriffs that will allow for anything to go in their county, and they'll let the DAs do whatever they want. They'll let the government come in anytime they want. And this is a slippery slope. There's a lot of jurisdictions in our country that are allowing the county commissioners to select the sheriff and not the people electing it. But yet the county sheriffs are always supposed to be the highest elected official at your local level. And they're supposed to be there as your constitutional representative.
Was this like more of the stuff from your earlier thing that you explained? So
Oh, this one here.
yeah, you don't have to answer it if you don't want to.
It's the
Like, did the
problem is
judge
that that's go ahead.
did the
I was never
judge like
I was
add
never convicted
more?
of those. No, all it was that I
Oh,
ended up. It was supposed to be a paraphernalia, and it ended up being, uh, uh, it was ended up being distribution. So
okay. Uh, See, someone's standing up to you for you. Someone's
Yeah,
saying that the fox is just
I
being
know, Dave. Thank
mean.
you. Appreciate it, Dave.
Yeah. So, well, we appreciate your time here, and we know you're a very busy guy. So, you want to give your what is your stance on marijuana?
Well,
You
anything the
missed you
government
last.
limits us, I stand against anything where the government limits us, any of our freedoms and liberties. And the fact that we don't stand up to those is why we are where we are. We have to answer that question. We have something that was actually beneficial to the economy of our country and the globe, and it was pushed out through big government. We got to be mindful that the government was never ever put in place to limit us, and we were always to be in charge of the government as well.
Well, I appreciate your time. You're just wonderful. Please go ahead and plug your shows for all the people who are here ending it with us. We have at Jim
Uh,
Price show,
at the Jim Price
right?
Show.
At
At the
the
Jim
Jim
Price
Price
Show.
show. And
Yeah.
that's on Twitter, Facebook,
Twitter,
Instagram. What
Facebook,
else?
Cloud Hub, D Live, Twitch. That's also on Spotify, iTunes, and I'm on Roku on the Conservative Television of America, and also Patriot Podcast of America on Roku. And so, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And we'll
All
end
right.
it here. Have a good
Thank
day,
you.
everybody.